It's Coney Gardiner. Not a whole lot more needs to be said. One of the interesting angles of this game tonight is the fact that both coaches have not only played in the game, now coached in the game, they also grew up as kids. I mean, back in Pop Warner days, watching this game be played. And Patrick Munzing, the head coach at Gardiner High School, is with us now. Patrick, Coach Munzing, good to have you on the pregame show tonight. Tell us, how many games do you think you have witnessed between Coney and Gardiner over the years, whether it's playing in them or not?
Oh, thanks for having me. I would say, I think I went to my first Coney Gardiner game when I was about 8 weeks old. Would have been born the first week of the season back in 1980. If that kind of dates me at all, and I don't think I missed any through up and through college. Then I was away.
Yeah,
a little bit.
That's remarkable. And of course, you went on to play for your dad. You were the Fitzpatrick Trophy runner-up. Played a couple of years at the University of Maine. So you've been a part of this whole thing. Your brothers have played in the game. What does it mean to you, Patrick?
It means an awful lot to be a part of something that's much bigger than even yourself or even your team. When you kind of look back in something that is in the fiber of your community.
Yeah.
Growing up, it was always talk of Coney Gardiner, whether that was basketball or baseball or Legion baseball growing up, but it was all stemming from Coney Gardiner football, and growing up in that, and just that the rival from the north, and it was so just threaded through our town culture growing up that it's still a part of it. It's still there.
Yeah, it's still a part of it. It's still there. And this year it's interesting because you both come in with the same record. You started out like a house of fire, Coach Munzing. You won 4 of 5, stumbled of late, lost the last 2. What do you need to correct to get this team back on the winning track against Coney?
I think part of it is getting healthy and getting back to our roots, where we were at the beginning of the season, and we're kind of looking to get back that way. We've had a few injuries which don't always make the paper because they're not your star athletes per se, but they're really the guys that make the machine work. Offensive line, defensive line guys that are really contributing, and no secret to us coming into the season. That was kind of our question: was our offense and defensive line going to be able to keep up in the Pine Tree Conference? And, you lose 1 or 2 of those guys with not a lot of depth, it definitely shows. So we're getting some of those guys back, we hope, and we've had some other guys now that have had a few weeks of experience, so we can kind of count on them. Now they've got some games under their belt. We started 8 different seniors on our line last year, and we kind of were like, okay, how's this going to work? But we're headed in the right direction and looking forward to Friday night.
Talking to Gardiner Tigers football coach Patrick Munzing. I almost said Rob Munzing before the game tonight here as Coney gets ready to take on Gardiner. When you were that little kid on the sidelines, Coach Munzing, with your dad coaching the team, did you envision that you would become Coach Munzing 20, 30 years down the line?
I always kind of felt that. I kind of, being a state trooper and having that self of community and giving back and service, it was one of those things that I really wanted to be able to do, and using the game of football to kind of teach and coach young men and athletes as they kind of progress through life is a great opportunity for me. I hear often of stories and different adults now that talk about how big of an impact my father had on their lives growing up, and to hear that and now be able to kind of do that same mentorship and coaching and that kind of thing, it's something that I really enjoy. And growing up, I was always in X's and O's. We were always in the backyard with my dad or Coach Brown or Coach Burgess as like a pawn of like, hey, this new formation or this play or how are you going to do this? And I've always been in love with the game of football.
Talking to Patrick Munzing, the head football coach at Gardiner High School ahead of the Gardiner-Coney game here tonight. Coney is a team that is playing well. I think they've had some injuries. They've got a fine young sophomore quarterback in Parker Moore. And what kind of problems do they present to you, Coach?
Well, I mean, they're as hot as anybody right now. right? Film doesn't lie, and there's definitely a connection between the two Parkers, which is clear. But I think what kind of goes unsaid is the soundness of their run game and the rest of their package. That's the obvious thing that's out there. But their system in itself. Coach Lippert's a great offensive mind. He's always been able to find the matchup that he's looking for, and where is it, and how does it fit into their scheme. And he's shown that through the Lobster Bowl and with his Coney teams in the past, and now that he's had some time to kind of figure out what guys he's got, they're striking everywhere, all over the field, and it's like, okay, what do you give up and what do you try to overprotect? And it definitely presents some challenges.
Coach Munzing, what's the one thing that you need to do both offensively and defensively to win this game?
For us, is play mistake-free. What really hurt us in those last couple games is some special teams turnovers and some turnovers on offense. If we can eliminate those and stop giving the other team extra possessions, that's the key to our game.
And finally, Coach Munzing, Coach Rob Munzing, what has he taught you that you use the most when it comes to coaching the game of football?
Ooh, that's a good question right there. I think that the biggest part is that, remember, these athletes are kids. They're still growing and they're still learning the game. And as much as we can get on chalkboards with X's and O's and kids will have their moments of highlights, but they also make mistakes and not dwell on those things. Put the kids in the opportunity to do the best they can.
Coach Patrick Munzing of the Gardiner Tigers, best of luck tonight against the Coney Rams. We appreciate your time here this evening on The Score.
Great. Thanks for catching our game tonight. I look forward to it.